Laurent joins me for our international press review. Hi, Deepti.
Hi, Nadia.
You're going to be starting us off then taking a look at the Chinese papers and some of their reaction to the removal of the presidential limit for Xi Jinping.
In searing defense of, that really is kind of the attitude we're getting from the Chinese papers. The constitutional amendment was made official on Sunday, which means that Xi Jinping could essentially be president until he dies. A way to strengthen party leadership, according to the party-run Global Times newspaper on their front page. While the foreign press has run pictures of Xi Jinping in their articles, we see them going with a picture here of a party member voting in an apparent sign to show that it was all very above board and democratic.
There are, though, some very fierce editorials from papers as well that you've been seeing.
Well, let's see. Let's stay with the Global Times, who really take a jab at the criticism that's primarily coming from the West about abolishing presidential term limits. I quote, "In these years, we've seen the harsh reality that the Western political system doesn't apply to developing countries and produces dreadful results. They also accuse Westerners who critique the change as wanting to be backseat drivers." And look at the language from the China Daily, another paper there, that editors there say support for changes belie naysayers' prejudice. They call the critics ignorant with a mean, malicious predisposition towards China's political system, out of, I quote, their irrational, subjective and unprofessional ideological bias.
Let's turn then here to France, Deepti, where the far-right party of Marine Le Pen is thinking about renaming itself.
That's right. Not everyone's buying into it. France 24's web team calls it a new name, but same old, same old. That's really the attitude we're getting from a lot of the papers. The far-right rebranding is no revolt, France 24's web team says. I quote, "The National Front by any other name will smell just as sweet or foul, depending on the nose of the beholder, as it did before." Now, the Berlin-based paper Die Tageszeitung says it's an attempt to demonize with the KKK, running a picture of Steve Bannon and Marine Le Pen meeting at that party congress, accompanied by the caption, "Who's colluding with whom?" Finally, you have the Swiss paper Tribune de Genève, which writes that the National Front is still flapping about, using the word frétti, which kind of gives you this image of a fish out of water, kind of flapping, struggling for air. It may be beleaguered, but it's still alive. Even if there are problems in the party right now, they risk being, quote, temporary, not least of all because their political dynasty is assured, at least by Marine Le Pen's niece, Marion Maréchal Le Pen.
Then let's head to Russia, where voting is due to take place in less than a week's time now. And it seems that in some regions, officials are doing really whatever they can to try and entice people to vote.
Well, there's little doubt that Vladimir Putin will probably be re-elected for a fourth term, given that his fiercest opponent, Alexei Navalny, has been barred from running. But The Guardian notes that officials are worried that people might not turn up to vote. So in one Siberian region, they're raffling a car. In another region, they're offering an iPhone 10. And yet in another city, the winner of the best selfie gets their picture on a billboard in the city. The aim is, of course, to garner support in order to get people out there voting on Sunday and really avoid the kind of strong-arm tactics that have prompted widespread anti-government protests in the past. Their biggest challenge, though, could be Vladimir Putin himself. He's shown very little interest in campaigning, not really changing his campaign tactics. So sure he is of winning.
Finally, from you then, Deepti, you tell me a football game has gone horribly wrong on the weekend. What's the story?
Well, that doesn't sound like, when you say it like that, it doesn't sound like it's anything new, does it?
Not to me, but spin it out for us.
But in Greece, this was the case. There were mad scenes at a Greek football match between PAOK Thessaloniki and AEK Athens. The match was suspended in the 90th minute after PAOK's defender scored a goal and it was ruled offside. This prompted supporters of the club to storm the pitch, including the club's owner, whose name is Ivan Savidis, reportedly a Russian billionaire with ties to Vladimir Putin. He stormed the field, as you see there, with a holster. It appears that he had a gun, and he told the referee that he was, quote, finished. The game was suspended, but good news for the club. They were awarded the goal and won the match 1-0 2 hours after it ended.
Deepti, thank you very much. Not much of a fan of football myself, but I have to say, if I was going to watch one,
it wouldn't be that one.
Real me in. I don't know. Deepti, thank you very much. That was Deepti Laurent there with our press review this morning.